Hello, everyone. My name is David Lonergan, and I am the Managing Director at Framework Recruitment and the Creative Director at Framework Solutions. And today I am speaking to Finbarr Doyle, who is the Director and Managing Director, at Daylight Glazing. Finbarr, can you give everyone a little bit of introduction to yourself and the business?
Sure. I'm Finn Doyle. I've been working in the construction sector for about 15 years or so. I fell into the construction sector by pure fluke. We can maybe talk about that at some stage. And 4 years ago, through another business we have, procurement for house builders, we decided to spin off and launch Daylight London. And Daylight London is a bespoke glazing, architectural glazing business, primarily aimed at architects and developers wanting to do something a little bit different, something a bit interesting or technically challenging. Um, in the last 4 years, we launched the business in lockdown. It was an interesting challenge in lockdown to do any launches at
Great. They
all.
say in they say in business timing is always really important.
Actually, I'm told that in terms of the stats of launching a business, 55% of the equation is timing. Actually, the idea isn't the key thing. It's the timing. So look, I actually think we did get the timing spot on. And I'm probably living a price
Yeah.
for that actually later on now that we're trying to figure out what to do next. But anyway, that's our business. That's Daylight, and we operate across the UK, and we work on both residential and commercial projects.
Well, because I don't know how you fluked into construction, so let's get on to it now. How did you fluke?
Okay, so I my background. I started my career in publishing. Okay, I started my career in sales and then business to business publishing, and found myself in the fintech market, publishing magazines, doing events, doing awards, networking with a lot of bankers, or there's and so on. And one of my clients actually had this harebrained idea of launching a games business, and I kind of was topping out in the publishing world, and I thought, well, that sounds a bit interesting. What transferable skills have I got to go into gaming? So, hook and by crook, we launched a games business, and there you go. So we launched a games business. We did it with a loan of 50 grand from Barclays. And 4 years later, I'm running manufacturing out of China. We've got a global supply chain. We're operating in 4 continents. We've got a £7 million turnover, and we're into people like everyone from, retailers in Japan to Target in the States, and all sorts of fun and games. Um, Lo and behold, obviously 2008, the world collapses, doesn't it? Right?
Yeah.
And China stopped shipping because no one was buying within about 8 weeks. And US retail, which was our biggest market in the US, shut down within the space of 4 weeks. It just literally stopped everything. That's how bad the financial crash was. And I don't think anyone actually realized from a retail perspective, retail went first. We saw the signals of what was happening in 2008 before layman's went. We saw the
That's
signals.
incredible.
So we were literally out. The business was done. We were gone. I spent the rest of 2008 really annoying my wife doing DIY stuff, and it got to the end of 2008. She said, "If you don't get out of this house, we may not know each other in a short while." So a friend of mine introduced me to a gentleman by the name of Neil Fuller, who was the MD of Ulster Timber. And if you think about 2008 going into 2009, construction was the worst place. Building materials was the worst place that I could have found myself in.
Yeah,
In
and fast
terms of
forward,
in
it's
terms of
still the
market
worst.
buoyancy,
Yeah, yeah. Fast forward, it's still no better.
and but he had a need for stuff I could do, and that idea that I remember walking into the business and being judged on my level of expertise was judged on what I knew about timber and building materials, and that was absolutely zero. So actually, I wasn't well received, put it that way. And I think I was the first employee into his business, also timber, after they'd made redundancies, to really try and analyse what the business had and what it needed to do to turn around. And lo and behold, I spent 6 years there. Neil made me commercial director. I was negotiating all the supply chain deals, getting in under the skin of not just commercially what the business could do behind the line of transaction, but also behind the supply chain as well. And we made some really great smart moves in that business, and I learned an awful lot. And he was a great guy to work for. He was probably, if I look at that period of my life, I learned more there about myself and about how to lead a business than at any other place I've worked. He was enormous, an enormous sort of influence, positive influence.
Do you know what the amazing, sorry to get in there quickly, the amazing thing about construction, for all its problems and for all its, we're still constantly not solving a lot of our issues. One thing that has always, I think, remained true is the impact of some really amazing leaders. Because again, I got into construction, structural glass, and it necessarily, there's a good chance that if it had been another company, I might not have stayed in it for as long as I had. But the leadership of where I was, they were just some of the most inspiring people I've ever worked with. Yeah. Genuinely. Right.
Yeah, but also, I hope I'm not, they really had, it's a tough market, and it's unforgiving. So you really have to know, you have to have, you have to have real sort of conviction and carry, an awful lot of weight in your shoulders to cut through, I think. And especially when you're coming out of recession and you've got people's livelihoods on your shoulders, and you're trying to make the right decisions and bring them along with you. It's very difficult. So Neil was a huge influence on the type, I think the type of person, the type of leader I am now. But I didn't obviously learn. It's only in reflection that you learn some stuff, right? So you learn as you're going, and then you realise actually, for all the great things that Neil was, he wasn't a great payer, okay? So and I had two kids at the time who were about to enter university, and I thought, look, I've got to move the dial here. So I decided, with Neil's blessing, I decided, look, I'm going to go and run a business. But I didn't have any business ideas of my own at the time. So I went and run other people's businesses. And so I moved into leading a buying group, a merchant buying group, for a couple of years. That didn't work out for all sorts of reasons. I think, my frustration there and the following role at Alloway Timber was I wanted to do things as if it was mine, and the business owners were saying, yeah, but it's not yours. And so there was a little bit of disjoint there. But what I did recognise is that, despite all of that and despite all the opportunity, I've recognised one sort of thing that carries through is that, opportunities that are usually disguised as hard work, and in construction it's always hard work. And it's just the reason why people don't take opportunities, I think, is because they don't do the hard work. And I think
there's I think there's also a British cultural problem around that. Ultimately, as you say, I think people that completely miss what responsibility offers you. Responsibility offers you not only meaning, but reward. Like, you get reward from shoving that stuff on your shoulder and getting through. Yeah. Those are the guys that get the rewards. Those are the guys that get praise. Those are the guys that leaders want to give more to, because you can rely on that sort of that personality.
I think you're spot on. I think that if you're prepared to carry weight on your shoulders and take responsibility on and put some energy behind it, I don't think you can go far wrong, so long as you're quite happy to stand by your decisions, even if they're wrong. Actually, I read a stat a couple of weeks ago. Successful people, really successful people, make decisions. Good decisions, correct decisions in hindsight, only 52% of the time. And I don't know if you saw the speech by Roger Federer. Have you seen that speech he gave in the States to the university
No, but
where
I've heard
he's
about
going?
it. I've another couple
Okay,
of people referenced it.
so and he goes by two things. He said, "I've only won 56% the shots I've ever played." Right? And he's the most successful tennis player of all time. Right? 56. Now that gives you an idea of what the fine line of winning is. And he said, the only difference between me and someone else is I know what to put behind me. When the shot's played and it's gone, it's gone. Can't do anything about it. I've got to face the next shot and the next shot. So it's what you get up from that's important, not what you sit with.
100%. I also think just the way the sort of like, when the power of narrative is like, that's how humans understand stories, like narratively, right? And ultimately successful people, it's usually always narrativized as just the shots they made, whereas all those failures, they're not as interesting, so they don't become part of the story. But ultimately it is a part of the story that everyone who
It's the whole story, David. I mean,
absolutely, exactly.
You don't learn from the success. You
I
only
remember,
learn from the failure.
what's her name? Corey. Oh no, she was on I think she was on one of the latest episodes of the Diary of a CEO podcast, and just her ability and her sort of narrativizing how she has this approach where if I think I'm going to do something, I'll do it, and I'll do it so quickly that I'll make mistakes on the way. But because I'm making mistakes on the way, I learn how to course correct really quickly, and it's actually there's the just get on and do it, man. Like, and it's the same with building businesses, isn't it? Ultimately, like, I mean, I don't mind. My story is it's a lot of failing, but we're failing upwards. It's a slow, steady rise.
Actually. Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely.
I like the failing upwards. I think there's this idea. I think a lot of people procrastinate I've got to get this right first, so I'm going to think about what I should do next.
Yeah.
And where I want to get to. And it's actually, you know what, for me, yes, it's important to envision what you're trying to get to. Of course it is. You need to know where the destination is. You have to know where the destination is, because otherwise you can't plan. But you only have to take the first step, and then the next step, and then the next step, and you can course correct. And there you 100%.
go. And it compounds, doesn't it? Because ultimately, there's that exponential curve. I think it sort of transcends into lots of different facets of human life. Like if you get up in the morning and you make, an unhealthy breakfast choice, the chance you'll have an unhealthy lunch compounds. So it's actually one good step forward. The chance you'll make the next step is forward is also compounds. And actually it's the just doing, because you can, as you say, you can also, you get when the data comes back, if you're wrong or right. And then if you're wrong, you know what to do to get right. And if you're right, you're doing it right.
And that's a good segue into, finding myself in 2020, having decided that I can't work. I was at a meeting the other day with a group of business owner peers, and we were all looking at each other when someone asked the question, "Are we really employable?" And we all looked at each other and went, actually, none of us are employable.
Probably not.
Because we
probably not anymore.
Work for anyone else, right?
Exactly.
But so you come to the conclusion that actually I'm not employable. I have to go and do something myself. And so James and I, my business partner James, who'd worked with me in the buying group, got together in early 2020, looked at some business ideas, and he was already working for himself, but actually doing something slightly different to the business that we now have. And out of that conversation, out of lockdown, lockdown was a great gift, because not only was the weather great, but also people had loads of time to talk to us when we were researching businesses.
And you could annoy your wife.
And I could, I didn't dare do that a second time. Although I did work, we were working from home, but because the weather was really good, I could do it from the garden, and we had space. So we started researching the market, and we repurposed his business to what is now P4HB, procurement for house builders, and that's an outsourced procurement business for SME developers. It wasn't at the time for SME developers. We were talking to the wrong people, but since we've been talking to SME developers, it's really began to resonate. And that business is really now growing strong and actually feeding daylight with some quite interesting business as well. But it was interesting because out of that, we were finding that our clients were asking us for glazing. And that's how Daylight was launched, is because we had a bunch of people, ready-made customers, who were asking us for glazing solutions. I'll be brutally honest with you, and I probably shouldn't admit this in video. The only thing I knew about glass is that glazing is that you could see through it.
Do you know what, Finbarr? So I want a couple of points to that. One thing that surprises me when you said you had no business ideas, that kind of just surprised me ultimately, because since we've been working together, there's like you guys seem really savvy in that respect. But I guess you can fool me. I guess that proves. But also just the fact that I think I have enough data now to show it, that the businesses that are doing better at the moment are people who don't come from glass and glazing. The people who come and don't see it, they just see it as a product. Because what you need, look, in the last 18 months, we've lost 200 companies. And some of those are big, reputable brands, from the very big to the very small. And what they had from top to bottom were product and project people who know the industry very well, people who know the products and the project very well. But this conversation is coming up more and more on places like LinkedIn, is that actually there's a little bit of business and financial acumen and literacy that perhaps we're missing in the same level to match that project and product skill. And so the companies that I'm dealing with and the clients that I have that are doing the sort of record numbers have got business leaders who have come in from other industry.
I think first of all, one of the things, I know we'll probably talk about in a little bit about in terms of, what have I learned and what sort of skills do I think you need for business? But I think I'm a huge believer in transferable skills. I'm a huge believer in saying if you have these attributes, you can you can apply those to pretty much most sectors. I think also, that ability to take a leap, and it's not for everyone, but the ability to take a leap in a sector that you know nothing about. And so how we went about that is we just went and talked to people. And we said, look, we've got this concept, we've got this business idea for a glazing business. And we went to speak to people like Rob McGlennon at DeKernick, and we went to speak to Smart, we went to speak to a number of sort of industry leaders about, the guys at Corteza, the whole gambit of people. And we said, look, hugely fragmented market. This is our business idea. This is our plan for execution for the first couple of years. What do you think? And without, there was a few comments and conversations and observations and recommendations. Of course there were, but without hesitation, everyone was going, yeah, you should do this. You need to do this. And that kind of was, and when it's interesting because when you go back and have those conversations, once you realize that actually the reason why they were saying that is they knew stuff you didn't know, and then you find out a little bit, and then you go back and have that conversation with them and go, because I think it needed fresh eyes, it needed fresh ideas. You guys came in, you had no idea where your barriers were. And that's half the battle, is not knowing where your barriers are, because you might not find them. And if you do find them, you'll think differently about what those barriers need, how to tackle those barriers. And so someone like Rob McGlennon said, look, as far as we were concerned, you've got an ability to sit on top of the market, to be exactly the resource that someone who's looking for technical solutions, business know-how, commercial input, operationally proficient, deliver a project, and want to do well at doing all of those aspects. There are so many. There's a lot. There's 2,500 fabricators. There's 11,000 glazing companies out there, but they're only offering a niche of what is available, and they're not. Very few do really well consistently. And so that consistency and resilience and so on is I think something he saw, and he went, you got to do it. You got to do it. So we did. And I think, if I'm honest with you, launching a business in lockdown actually gave us a bit of an easy ride, if I'm honest with you. We got a little bit we grew a bit too quickly, and we also thought, this is easy. We thought it was easy for a while. Because if you think about what happened after lockdown, I mean, we launched it in lockdown, but in 2020, 2021, 2022, everyone was flush. Everyone was doing business. Everyone
Well,
had
that was
money in
the
their
really
pocket.
weird thing because everyone was bracing themselves, sort of post the end. Everyone was bracing themselves just before lockdown. It was shit. This is going to be a race. It's going to be a race to the bottom. And the sort of opposite happened, and
Yeah.
then everyone was doing great numbers, hand over fist. And then there was this sort of, yeah, it felt like great times, but then boom,
Yeah, and we
it,
were
it
lucky
didn't
in that
didn't
because I
last.
mean, yeah, it did slow down pretty quickly in 23, but we were fortunate in that because we had this sort of resilience, this confidence, this sort of we're going to do this. I'm not taking anything lying down type approach, but we're going to be really good at what we do, right? So if we've got to get some pain, if we've got to invest, if we've got to, obviously first of all, we needed really good people, and that's what we did. Uh, but we did grow quite quickly, and what that gave us is a buffer. And that meant that we had a lot of business coming in. We had a lot of longer tail business, longer tail project business that we won. And we were able to learn an awful lot technically, operationally, and system wise. We were able to learn an awful lot during that time. That was a huge learning curve and growth curve for the business. And I think, we're the reason why we're here now is because we grew really quickly. I don't anticipate that this year, for the year we're in now, we start our financial year in August. So the financial year we're in now, we're not budgeting to grow a great deal this year, for the 12 months, probably about 10%. But actually, what we are banking on is that the following year, with what we're doing right now inside the business, strategy-wise, system-wise, people-wise, is that we're aiming high for 25, 26. We want to see double growth and double again and double again.
Well, one thing that I've found really interesting about working with you guys, especially closer recently, is your ability to just like it's like almost like a transport. Like things change so quickly. You're agile enough to know, like, well, this was our plan now, but actually we've decided we're going to change tack a little bit, or even in the sort of the setup, it can constantly. I guess, are you constantly reviewing how things are working, how processes are working, and think actually here's enough data, here's enough analytics to decide maybe changing up a bit to see if another process will benefit us more.
We have been up to now. We've kind of gone through two phases of planning, and we've just launched, or we're just about to launch. We're in the middle of planning really during this year, our next sort of 4 to 5 year plan. And that really is that is the sort of that we've got to the point now where we're in the fortunate position where we can actually take our time and get the plan really right. And that starts with, as you know, we had recently, we've been fortunate enough to, I think in business, I think where sometimes business goes wrong, and glazing is no different to any other business. Where it goes wrong is that people define what they want to do first, and then they try and pull people into those positions. And I think that's sometimes a challenge for recruitment, where you get a job spec and you're trying to match a job spec, and people are going, yeah, but the person can't do this and they can't do this. We actually flipped that. I don't know if you might know Jim Collins' book Good to Great.
Yes,
If
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
don't, yeah, okay, right. And he's a big believer, and I'm a big believer, where it's actually people first, then what? Okay. So, for example, we brought Chris Archer into the business really to actually help us define the next phase of growth for Daylight. And part of that was, do we build succession? We need to build succession, of course we do. But is succession inside or outside? And let's identify that. And lo and behold, 3 weeks later, we're having a conversation with you. And 2 weeks after that, we've got Leo Howson helming, heading up the helm. And thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we are able to be agile. We are able to be nimble, but we now have, and we've processed through the last sort of 3 or 4 months, what it is we now want to do for the next 5 years, basically. And so, because we're in this state of flux, we're focusing on we've actually got 3 businesses now. So we're focusing on the next 12 months for P4HB, for Daylight, and for Genau, which is our kitchens business, and soon will be kitchens, bathrooms, interiors. But actually the overarching thing there is to systemize the entire business group and umbrella that with a single promise of delivery through a service excellence piece. And so we're now looking at what the purpose of that is, what the processes need to be, what the systemization of that needs to be, what people and resources we need, and anyone who comes along in the meantime we're going to pull in anyway, because we know we're going to need them. And so I think we're now getting we've got far clearer sort of vision and purpose for where we want to get to as a group of businesses. But we're fortunate enough and really grateful because of all the hard work we've done and will continue to do, really grateful for the fact that we've got a bit of time to process that properly and make sure that we go. And of course, like all plans, we're going to end up somewhere different, but of course we are. But someone put it to me, the other day, if you're the captain of a ship and you're about to leave port, there's only 2 things you really need to know before you leave port. One is what ship have you got? And the second thing is, where's your destination? Because you can't pack it with the right things unless you know where your destination is. You don't know what crew you need, you don't know what food you need, you don't know what anything. And I think that's an interesting sort of way of looking at what it is that you need to be able to say now for where you want to get to. And if you end up somewhere slightly different, we might not end up in India, we might end up in America, on that ship.
We'll take, no matter where we land, we'll take your gold.
So we're just making sure that, wherever that destination is, that we really clearly understand what's needed. And so we're having all sorts of fun and games in conversations around, systemization, technology, integration, AI, and of course, where are the good people? And hence, our relationship with Framework is crucial in that. And because I don't think it's about just people in glazing, I think it's just about people. And I think that what we've learned is that I don't, if we need a really good operator, and they happen to come from a glazing background, but we actually need them in our procurement business, I don't have a problem with that. Why would I have a problem with that? So I think so that's where we are.
So let's concentrate more on you and your sort of normal day to day. You come in. What's your normal day like at Daylight?
So at Daylight, what it's been up to recently, up to the last few months, I've been really mindful of the fact that as the sort of the founder and lead of the business, what I should be doing, what I should have been doing more of at the time was really stretching the business a bit further, leading it from the bridge, as it were, and not be in the day to day. And I found myself being pulled into the day to day, particularly when you're dealing with some tier 1 contractors and some very needy end user clients. So because up to now we've really focused on both residential and commercial, and it's not that we won't continue that. Really, our heart is in residential. And not in the bigger commercial sort of projects.
Well, also the tier 1, as much as attractive as it is working for tier 1s, because there's a level of prestige that come with it, it's just such a fucking thankless road sometimes because of the hoops they make you jump through.
I'm glad you say fucking thankless, because it's more brutal than that, actually.
Yeah,
if I'm honest with you.
But it is though, and I get that's. The part that's the bit where, like, sorry, it's the bit that's, it's almost like it doesn't fulfill the the relationship, or like we deserve as an industry, we deserve better, more lenient terms, considering how vital it is in the supply chain.
I, I think it's even worse than that, David. I think not only do we as subcontractors and specialist subcontractors in particular deserve better because we're not just another labour contractor. We are providing specialist technical services. The services we have to put into the chain at the start don't always lead to an output at the end. You know, we have to put our cost in first, and then often hope we A, get the business, and B, with tier ones, that we get paid. So it's really hard. But I actually think what's as sinful as that is the short-termist approach that tier one contractors, not all of them. We've met some really good people. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, of course, we are painting we're painting with a thick brush here, but it's still the point remains.
The point remains that there are plenty. There's more tier one than there's not developers and contractors who view subcontract world as a pit of snakes, and they can just pick another one out.
Yeah,
and that's really unfortunate, because when you're trying to be the best you can be, you're trying to elevate yourself past the snakes, because there are some snakes in there. Let's face it.
Right. I also think it could be generational. My hope is that it's generational, because some of these guys who are the business leaders and the decision makers at those institutes, they're still, they've come through the Gordon Gekko times of construction, where it's, your enemy's in the dirt and success at all costs. And ultimately that's not a healthy mindset. I'm of the opinion, and I'm sure you'll agree, that like collaboration beats competition. There's enough there for everyone. And actually a high tide raises all ships, and we can't continue to lose 200 companies every 18 months. It's not fit for purpose. And even from a very selfish perspective, coming out of, absolute world-renowned market-leading architectural glazing company to supply the industry with, with its talent and skill. One thing that I constantly see is these company losses. We're lucky if 30% of that workforce stays in the industry due to the demands of a cost of living crisis, means they just have to take the work. And a lot of the time they'll take a sidestep into like dry lining or just some other construction niche.
I know, it's sinful.
Well, and exactly. And it's like, this setup isn't fit for purpose. And we can't. And again, the problem will be those of those companies that lost, there'll be some guys who'll set up, they'll go, I can do this better, and they can do it better. But it's only so granular, because again, they are project or product people, whereas we just need a healthier, more holistic relationship with the tier one contractors. And to be fair, even in industry, some of the practices and the way we treat our supply chain is pretty crappy. But my hope is that, these conversations are becoming more widespread, and ultimately, I believe human progress is a constant, even if it's fractal when you zoom in. As it goes up, it goes up and down.
But it only takes little incremental improvements over time to make a huge difference. Both in terms of approach, respect, how business should be done, etc. But it's interesting also, because we work with one tier one in particular at the moment. He's gone through a number of changes over the last couple of years, at a senior point. And it's interesting now what's happening. It's like you can almost see history repeat itself, because the newer people coming through the system clearly fall into two categories. Either those are sitting there going, I don't want to work in a place where I'm supposed to be really hard on everyone I meet. And those who are trained to be really hard on everyone they meet. And the problem with it is that I can actually see this playing out. I can actually see that the guys and the girls who are going to survive are the ones who are like-minded to play hard, because that's where the management is, and the ones who are going, this isn't for me, they're going to go. and it's almost just to comment generally, not just about not specifically about that contract or that tier one. Um, uh, um, it's almost self-inflicting. It's almost
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
self-sabotage on the on as you say, you know, we all let all the ships rise, and they're not letting anyone rise, and suddenly they're going to be lacking. At some point, the subcontractor queue will dwindle.
But you're also even seeing it with like the prestige for winning those contracts is diminishing.
Yeah.
People with now through the looking glass, like why would you put yourself through all that pain, sweat, tears and still not even still sure if you're going to be paid? And ultimately, when you have like the post-pandemic, the way these projects and product get to market is now so diverse. You're getting profile over from Malaysia, you're getting your glass from
Oh,
Spain, and the problem is like you, as much as you have operational procedures and control to arrest any problems, when you're dealing with fucking glass, like anything could go wrong, and then it's always at your end that has to
we
suffer.
have to
There's
pick
no
up.
like
Yeah, yeah,
we won't suffer together.
yeah. No, it's not. It's not. How do we fix this problem? It's what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
How much are we taking off your
yeah,
end?
yeah, 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 yeah,
Look, we could oh, I could insult tier one all day, so let's move on.
yeah.
What are
Let's do
the,
that.
what are in your so what would you say are like the top five skills necessary for growing and scaling a business in this sector?
Okay, so the top five skills. I think it starts with when we recruit, we try and recruit under a sort of a framework or a guide system that's sort of a bit of the sort of the Lencioni book of tricks, humble, hungry, smart, right? And of those three, you don't want someone who's just smart. You want someone who's going to be fit in with the team. You want someone who's going to be hungry enough to help drive things forward. But I think this in simple terms, you want to find good people. It's just find good people, and if you've got a decent idea, a decent business, you've got a platform, you'll they'll find things to do that will add value, even if you can't. So I think
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's interesting.
I think
I've
that also
seen.
that speaks to one of our problems. It's sort of a blessing and a curse because, as you say, the benefit is someone will come into your business and they'll find a way to do it. Is that like you can have designers in across five different companies, but actually all doing different thing.
Yeah,
It's called designer, but the actual
yeah,
role is very different. And so, actually,
yeah.
yeah, I think I see what you're saying there.
So I think people. I mean, just this idea. I've come. If you think about construction and it's sort of its cyclical nature, and it's either feast or famine. It seems to be. 3 years of feast, and then it will drop off, and then it'll go again. And in that, you have this cycle of, oh well, we're going to have a good year next year, so let's see how we go, and we'll recruit as we go. But of course, the reason why you have the drop off and you're not smarter than the rest is you didn't actually say to yourself, let's get good people in now. Get good, take the cost now. Get good people in now, because when it does go, we will be ahead of the curve. We will have good people ready to go. And so I've come from a background where I've always been taught that you have to invest in people that you've got the liquidity to draw from. So in other words, that it has to be fundable. And we're fortunate enough in Daylight and in P4 where we've been able to take on people um, because they're the right people for the business. And then say, if we take Leo Housen, for example, yes, were we looking for Leo when we had our initial conversation? No, we weren't.
No,
But two
no,
weeks
no.
later, he's here and he's making a difference. And I'd say to any business owner first is really think about getting good people in and actually make sure they're smarter than you are. Yeah? Make sure they're smarter than you are, because why are you paying them otherwise? You
Oh,
can't pay them
exactly,
just
and
to do
that's
stuff. Yeah?
the gosh, what's his name? The Apple guy.
Yeah. It is. It is.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
God, why are we having, why are we having a blank?
Oh, you're having a blank. Oh, yeah, his name. Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. There you go. God, yeah. But
Yes,
it is
yes.
surround yourself with people better than you. The second thing is, I think, know why in terms of, successful business, know what value you bring. Know what value you bring to the party, and be able to make sure that you can make it understood. It's really difficult otherwise to set yourself out from the pit of snakes, basically, because and I think it's such a fragmented market, and in a market that hasn't the best reputation for delivery and promise. You have to make sure that that message is the mantra, not just of what people hear, but what we speak of. And I
Yeah,
think that's really important. So, that leadership piece, that whole figuring out what value you bring is I think vital. And that includes also the destination where you're trying to get to, what it is you. Although we do like asking in this business, my favorite question is what's possible. So sometimes that doesn't need a destination. It needs to ask the question whether the destination is far enough. There's some of that goes too. I think the other thing that I think we're doing, what we're doing right now at the moment, I touched it earlier on, is, you know, I think we talk about often misapportion the where value sits, because value sits not just with the people that you have in your business, but actually value sits in allowing people to make themselves redundant, which means the systems have to be really good. If you systemize a business well enough, it means that, someone today who's doing a particular role should be comfortable in moving out of that role and going to the next one and the next one and the next one, because the business shouldn't stop because they've left that role. So I'm a big believer that actually people sit on the business, riding the system. Excuse the expression; it's not meant to sound that way, but the system should be the driver of the business in
hmm
terms of how the cogs work. People are there to make it the best it can be, and then move on and pass the buck, and pass the baton down to the next person. And I don't think you can grow a business without having those mechanisms and that sort of thinking in place. I think otherwise you just stagnate and you figure out why you can't grow.
but I think ultimately, I think you look at it. I wish that I wish that analysis was sort of more widespread, because you just like, I get a lot of feedback from, whether it's clients, whether it's candidates, whether it's my old colleagues and new colleagues, etc., etc. And I still think there's a lot of, oh, we've done it this way we've been doing this way for 10 years. And so actually some systems, they never change. And I ultimately think, I absolutely think you're right. It's about, if you can, your setup should be strong enough, as you say, for it to be passed on to the next person. That next person is then completely sort of, I am, I've done this to a high level. I can't get any higher. So how do I make that next step?
Yeah, and I think also, and it's a bit of a tricky line to toe with some people, in the sense that if you're honest about it and you're having an honest conversation with your team, basically what you're really saying to them is look, if you get run over by a bus tomorrow, my business can't fail, right?
Mm.
But if you don't get run over by a bus tomorrow, I want you to be able to succeed without being held back. And there's the line. That's the line, yeah? And if you don't have a system, you will be held back. Yeah. So that's certainly part of it. I think also, there's obviously technology and AI is definitely a thing, now. And we part of our sort of bigger plan for the business, and how we view, what's required to succeed in, let's call it daylight 2.0, what's required is very different from what's been done before. What's required in terms of being able to provide expertise at the level that's really required as we get more and more technologically ambitious in the projects and the buildings we want to build. At the same time, we've got to be able to quote that business quicker, faster, better, and at a lower cost. So
I find I think it's only a lack of people's imagination in why they haven't started with AI yet. Because ultimately, you're never putting that genie back in the box, and the efficacy. I think some, I think some of the problem with trying to get people to understand how they can implement it is just ultimately it's the maxim of sort of mainstream media. If it bleeds, it leads. So virtually all of the conversation around AI is it'll kill us, like in Skynet, and all these sort of stupid hyperbolic. Well, exactly, but ultimately it misses the point of what's here today. Is some of these tools, the efficacy and efficiency of what these things can do today. It's just mind blowing. It's mind blowing. So find ways to implement these tools into your business, because you'll be playing catch up in 5 years' time.
Oh, I think it'll be less than that. I really do. I mean, I know there's been a little bit of a pushback, a little bit of kickback on how good, how smart AI really is. And of course, it's not really smart. It's not. But
well, no,
it's only as good
as the reference
point it's got.
It's a software. It's software.
But ultimately. I think that's also a push. I think the reason why we're getting some of that pushback is because of the fear, because of the unknowns, because of the looking for reasons not to take the step. And actually, what we're saying earlier on about just do it, just surprise yourself, be prepared, be open to be surprised, and you will be surprised, right? You kind of be surprised.
Yeah.
If you don't know what AI is about, you will get surprised. And you will also, as soon as you start that journey, there's all sorts of fun and games and ideas that flow. And I think, it's nuts. It's crazy. But it's also really interesting because
madness.
Really the simplest sort of application can cut hours out of your week. And even if you
absolutely.
just take, what is it that I spend my time doing? What's follow up on meetings like? How do I make consistent how we talk about the business? Just simple questions like that. AI can cut through all of that, really quite
absolutely.
quickly.
Even the meeting, so we use Otter AI to transcribe some of our exactly, and so being able to just go to the platform and say, how many tasks have I given to X, Y, or Z in the last 3 months? Bang, there's all your tasks. How many times was this referenced? Who talked about it? It's just insane, the efficacy.
Yeah.
Well, look, last bit on this topic, or on this sort of section. New people are coming into the market. What's your advice?
Right. First of all,
get out.
Coming into the market.
Get out.
No. Look, first of all, despite all the moaning and groaning we've done about people like Tier 1 and stuff, and the fact that sometimes it's a little bit sort of stayed in its mindset or approach, I genuinely, and I've worked in a number of sectors, I genuinely think the construction sector is the best place to be because the people in it are freaking great. Okay, I genuinely believe that. I think also, if you're prepared to work hard, and if you're prepared, and there's no such thing as easy rides. Whatever you've been taught on social media, whatever someone said to you, if you're coming out of school or college or university now, and you're hoping that in a couple of years' time you're going to be in a nice cushy job just because social media says you can, doesn't happen. But I can promise you that the people who will pull you through, if you are hardworking, there are so many people in this industry that will pull you through, and so many people who are willing to give you the guidance and the and the support needed. And actually, it's a great place to be because I think over the next sort of 5 years we are going to see some growth, both in the glazing sector and construction in general. Yeah.
And one thing you can guarantee, if you're, and I can still see why the appeal's there to a degree, but if you're if you're looking to take on an IT degree of some description, whether it's like, what does that landscape look like in the next 5 to 10 years? Glass and aluminium are the building materials of the future. We'll be using those materials for the next 100 years. Like, this is an
Yeah,
industry where your career will be safe. Like,
yeah,
we
it will.
will need
It
you.
really will. And I think, what's really, what's really exciting is, and this will keep on happening. What possibly could technology, AI, aluminium and glass conjure up in the next 5 years, 10 years? Christ knows.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but it's going to be interesting, right? It's going to
It's
be
something
interesting.
it will
I've
do
no doubt.
something. Yeah.
In our other business, in P4HB, in our other business, we're seeing some really innovative product come through. Really using technologies, using things that people never thought about, and actually costing a lot less to go to market with. So I think if you're coming in also. I would make sure that you start with people. I touch on this quite a lot. I'm a big believer in. I hate the American expression of paying forward, but actually just giving before, just giving, right? So if people were coming into the sector, I'd hope there's enough people in the sector that you can find someone who's going to give you a break, give you a chance, believe in you, and actually, you just need to want to do something. And I think you can make it happen in construction, make it happen in glazing, make it happen in all the subsectors of the sector we're in.
I agree, sir. I agree. And again, it goes back to that point I made earlier. I think that, again, not only when I walked through the doors at Cantifix, it wasn't just that the aesthetic grabbed me, because it did. It was the leaders there. It was the people there that were said, like, here's the opportunity, take it, grasp it. We'll invest in you. And I think, and again, that's, it's whether it's by hook or by crook, because ultimately when you have a profound skill gap, that's what smart leaders will do. Like, they'll look tangentially across all the people they come across and think, can we develop this person? I think that's one of the you're right. That's one of the beautiful things.
I think that investment in relationships. It's interesting because I was having this. I touched on this with my son, not maybe in such a succinct way. My son is a completely different sector, but he's so hardworking, and he's so into just making the relationships he's got, bringing anything he can to make those relationships better. And he's worked so hard, and he was talking to me a while back, going, but I'm not getting much back for it. And I said, just hold on, just be patient.
It compounds. Give it time.
And 6 months later, it's coming. So, and I think you just need to, I think we're growing up in a world where expectation is a given amongst you, sort of the people coming out. I think there's a generation coming through, and I think that needs to flip and just say, look, what can I give? What can I give? And I think if you come with that approach,
Finbarr,
then I think that it will come back in spades. But
I also think we
don't
talk,
go asking for it.
Yeah, we talk. I think and definitely in how companies market, and how even people sort of, when you're personal branding, people love to use the terms like, of logical solutions, but humans aren't fucking logical. We're absolutely mad.
We're actually the most illogical beasts.
Absolutely. And so, but I think what your son's doing, and I think I know I connect to it because it's something I do myself. It's it's the psychological hooks of giving, that if you do it enough times, people are like, we've got to give back to this. Like, we've just got to give it back, and that's how you build. Yeah, goodwill compounds.
Yeah,
and I think that's
So I think that's the most important thing. Yeah, no, I think that's the most important thing.
Okay, and I think this is a nice final segue into. Could you just talk a little bit about sort of your relationship with Framework, and how, since we've worked together, what you felt as sort of our USP or our sort of special sauce?
I think we've already talked about it. We just haven't put it in the framework. Okay, which is that idea, and I think there's no such thing as being you can't be natural at this. It has to come from within. It has to come from the heart. It has to come from who you are, and that is that any interaction I've had with you, you've never once tried to tell me, you've never once tried to tell me what we needed or tried to find out necessarily what we needed. I think we've had a conversations have always been around, look, you've asked me, what can you do for me? What can I do for you? And so we've had conversations around things like this. We've had conversations around recruitment. We've had conversations where we've put the world to rights. We've had conversations where actually we've put the world to wrong too, right? And we've and we've had conversations about, the health of the industry, what young people should be doing, how to attract talent, all sorts of stuff. And it's coming from a place that of just wanting tomorrow or today, I should say, to be better than yesterday. That's all it is. And I think that's what we get. And I genuinely think, and I know that your focus, your background, your framework, what you're doing with attracting talent to the industry, etc., is centered around glazing. But actually, I think there's, talk about transferability. We're going to launch a couple of businesses next year, and I think one of those businesses is definitely around the centerpiece of caring for the sake of caring, right? Caring in an industry for the sake of caring in the industry, to give forward and see what happens with good people. And I'd like you to be on that journey.
I was surprised. Oh, thank you so much. Obviously, I'm in, but thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think, and also, I guess for my, I'd like to feed back, and again, because it's like, when I started off, to keep the doors open, I'd have worked the devil. That's kind of, those are the things you have to do. But one thing that's been really, really special about, I think actually, I posted a couple of weeks ago, like, you get what you tolerate. There's a quote that I'd heard. And one thing that's kind of beautiful now is deciding the clients we work with. It's the people who invest in the process as much as we do. And you've really done that. And also just this wouldn't be a business if we were connecting the best talent in the industry to companies that were dog shit, that they didn't enjoy, that didn't have vision. And ultimately, that's the great thing about this relationship. It's not only seeing how you've worked, but the people that have gone in are now reporting back of actually, like, this is the place we want to be. So thank you. And again, thank you so much for the feedback.
You.
It's been
listen, thank you. I mean, it's interesting. I think you have to go through, if I look at the bruises that you go through and trying to run other people's businesses and being, hijacked and all that sort of fun stuff, and you realize that actually, it tones you and informs you on how not to be and the person you should be. And I think that's where, and honestly, that's kind of, had I not gone through those other experiences, I don't think you'd be talking to Daylight in the way that you are. And I'm not saying it's all about me, but it's not. It's anything but it's about working with like-minded people and getting like-minded people around you. That's what it's about. Oh,
thank you so much, Finbarr.
Huge listen, I really appreciate the invite. Really appreciate talking to you. It's been. I've enjoyed this very much. It's been really good.
I didn't know. This is the one, this is the most I've laughed on one yet. So thank you. Top man.
Good. Sorry about the sun rays. It just happens to be that we're.
Hey, it's days. Narratively it works. Daylight. You've got daylight.
Yay! It's the
exactly. You're on brand. You're on brand.
Yeah, we are.
Take care, Finbarr.
Thank you very much, David. Look after yourself. Have a good day.
Cheers, sir.
Cheers. Bye.